here in custody. He's represented by Ms. Smith and Mr. Colvin. Mr. Rubenstein and Mr. Wade are both here for the people. We're outside the presence of our jury. Anything before I invite our jury and Mr. Rubenstein?
We do have a few things that probably make sense to have Mr. Colvin go first, though.
Okay. So Mr. Colvin.
The defense is requesting our routine media inquiry. Second issue is, Judge, we're asking the court for I asked for the routine media inquiry. We're also asking the court, after Ms. Platts is sworn for the day, if we could have the dog instruction re-given, the one that was given yesterday. Those are our requests for today.
Any objection, Mr. Rubenstein or Mr. Wade?
No objection to either of those requests.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you start?
Mr. Rubenstein.
Thank you. The other issue, that Mr. Colvin had mentioned that he had an out-of-state witness issue that we were working on. What we've decided to do so that when this happens, the court isn't caught off guard is we're going to not object to Mr. Colvin introducing, it's basically, I think, 2 sentences about when, what's her name?
Tammy Slater.
Tammy Slater, about when Tammy Slater believes she saw the red Ford Focus. And so we're going to permit that to come in as hearsay through Investigator Pachota, and then me to inquire further with Investigator Pachota about how that fits in with the other evidence, and that way the defense isn't prejudiced by this other issue with the out-of-state subpoena. So that probably won't happen until next week during the defense case, but we just wanted to let the court know that that issue has now been resolved. I spoke to Investigator Pachota this morning, who's actually home sick, but I've put him on notice that we will need him back for that issue next week.
And if I could supplement.
Mr. Colvin, sure.
So, given the fact the prosecution's allowing us to introduce the evidence, albeit in an unusual fashion through hearsay testimony of a different witness, I don't believe that I have any requests or any issues to raise with the court regarding the out-of-state court's denial of our out-of-state subpoena. So, just wanted the record to be clear on that.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
No, sir.
No.
We're juggling a bunch of plane flights today, Judge, doing our best to accommodate witnesses, so we'll see how fast we can accomplish what we need to.
Okay.
That's from both sides.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you. And I did want to mention, I think the trial's been moving very smoothly and efficiently, and I appreciate it, so thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mason County District Court Division, 10 is now in session again with the Honorable Brian J. Flynn presiding.
Thank you. Good morning. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. And for the record, our jury has joined us back in the court. Welcome back, everybody. I do have to ask all of you if you've been exposed to any media coverage, about the trial, if you'd please raise your hand for me. None of our jurors have raised a hand. Thank you again for being so cautious about that. Also, before we continue with Ms. Platz's testimony this morning, I need to give you that limiting instruction that I gave to you yesterday, and that's as follows. The rule in Colorado is that dog tracking evidence must be supported by corroborating evidence, and that standing alone, it is insufficient for a criminal conviction. Therefore, such evidence must be viewed with caution. It must be considered with all other testimony in the case, and in the absence of some other evidence of guilt, you may not convict Mr. Jones on the basis of the dog tracking evidence alone. Thank you. So Ms. Platz, you're still under oath from yesterday, and if you could retake the stand for us, please, and Mr. Colvin can continue with his cross-examination whenever he's ready. Thank you.
Could I request the court give the instruction to the jury relating Ms. Platz's testimony?
I'm sorry.
The instruction to the jury regarding dog
I
evidence.
actually just did it, so
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge.
no worries.
That's not disregarding the court. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. Thanks. I think I read it already anyway. Thanks.
My fault. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Colvin.
Mr. Wade, I showed you exhibits yesterday. Do you want to see them?
No, I'm fine. I think I saw everything. Okay.
Can I
Thank
approach the witness, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Potts, I'm showing you a document that's labeled 000.
Okay.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That is our homepage of the website.
Okay, the website for VK9.
Yes, sir.
correct? And this is the page of the website that indicates that a specialty of VK9 is age trails. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We talked about that yesterday, right?
Yes, sir.
I don't think I admitted the exhibit. So this time the defense would offer 000 into evidence, Judge.
Mr. Wade, do you have an objection?
Objection.
Defendant's 000 is admitted. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Platts, I want to talk to you about some of the tracks that you did in this case. I know we referenced some yesterday, so I'm going to move forward, try and cover them in somewhat the same order, okay? But I'm not going to cover them all since we talked about some of them. The first thing I want to talk to you about is yesterday during your direct examination, prosecution put up some pictures and you talked about the pictures and how they related to different tracks that you did. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you did your report, you attached pictures to your report, right?
Yes, sir.
And the pictures that you attached to your report had labels on them or words written on them that you had put there, right?
Yes, sir.
Explaining different things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can I approach the witness again?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
Showing you what's been marked as PPP. Can you look at that, tell me if you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
It's a multiple page document, so could you look at the whole thing for me, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you tell us what this is?
This is the back half of the report. The first half, the cover pages, is the actual written narrative. These are the pictures and GPS tracks related with the work.
So these are all the photographs and pictures that were attached to your report, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on the pictures, there's writing, and that writing was put in by you to explain different things. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At this time, the defense would offer PPP into evidence, Judge?
Mr. Wade.
No objection, Your Honor.
Defendant's P is admitted. Mr. Colvin.
I'm going to ask, well, let me do this and get it over with. Permission to approach one more time.
Yes, sir. That's fine. Thanks.
I'm showing you 4 documents that have been labeled triple Q, triple R, triple S, and triple T. Do you recognize these documents?
These appear to be the interior shots of the Pepsi building. I don't believe these were actually in my report, but they were pictures I had seen taken from the site, yes.
Okay, so yesterday we saw pictures that were put up on the screen related to when you did the tracks inside the Pepsi building. That's the one where the white truck was there, right?
Yes, sir.
These are additional pictures of the interior of that building. They weren't included in your report, but you were there when they were taken, correct?
I don't believe I was present when they were taken, but I recognize the interior shots.
Okay, so you recognize what they did.
Yes, sir.
And they're a true and accurate depiction of how the interior of the building looked at that time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Judge, at this time, defense is offering triple Q through and including triple T.
Mr. Waite.
No objection, Your Honor.
Defendants triple Q through and including triple T are all admitted.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is the very first run. That's the run that you do at the impound lot where the burned car is, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that very first run, if I understand your testimony, may I have permission to publish multiple photographs, basically everything that I've introduced so far except for 000.
So triple P through and including triple T.
Yes.
Any objection, Mr. Wade?
No objection to
That's fine,
publishing.
you can proceed, thank you.
And is that sufficient if I bounce around on those exhibits?
Yes, sir. I just want to make sure they're admitted and that there's no objection is why I asked as far as the presentation, so it's fine though. Thanks.
So I'm putting up what has been admitted as PPP. And it's sideways. Bear with me a second, Ms. Platts, I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm looking at the bottom, looking at the bottom picture on the first page. For clarity's sake, that page is marked as page 1457 on the document. So the first track you do, what we're doing on this one is we are scenting on cadaver scent. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is the one where you get an indication between cars 2 and 3. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, obviously, there's not a body between cars 2 and 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
But this is the one where you redirect the dog and you take him past it and you bring him back, right?
The dog worked the line, down the line, and then after he worked the line, I reversed him and had him work back up the line, yes.
Okay. And yesterday when you were testifying, you talked about how you were trying to redirect the dog. You recall that, using that language?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you know, as a human being, things the dog doesn't know, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you know there's not a body between the two cars, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, it would be silly to think that Mesa County is storing a body between cars in their impound lot, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you know, though the dog is showing interest between 2 and 3, that's silly. So you're helping the dog figure out where it should be. That's why you take him down past this and bring him back, right?
Yes, sir, but also the dog's indication is a down, and because of the nature of that, where the vehicles are at, the dog can't down inside that vehicle, so he downs as close to the area that he feels the odor is coming from as he can. In this case, he downed between 2 and 3. That's the indication, was between those two vehicles.
Right. The dog's supposed to indicate or go down where the scent is, right?
He downs where he can get to.
But the point I was trying to make is the dog is supposed to down or indicate where the scent is.
Yes, sir, as close as he can
Okay.
get to it.
I'm with you.
Got it.
Dog couldn't climb inside the car. I get that, okay?
Yes, sir.
My point is he downs where the scent is if he can.
Yes, sir.
All right. But you know where he's down is wrong, right?
He downed where he was able to go down at.
Ms. Platts, you know for a fact there's not a body on the ground in the sheriff's department impound lot between two cars.
Correct.
All right. And you know where he downs, that's not where the body is, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you know necessarily there's an explanation for that, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've already told us what your explanation is. The dog can't climb inside the car, the dog getting as close as he can. So the dog is in fact doing the right thing. It just requires you to explain it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you explain it, you are the one that is making some decisions. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Run 3. Run 3 also happens in the impound lot, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, run 3 involves your dog working on the scent that was obtained from the brown shorts, which you were told belongs to Mr. Jones, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, on this one, you're going, may I approach this exhibit?
Yes, sir, thanks.
On this one here, the bottom picture that we were previously referencing, you have a label, the wind is blowing this way, so from right to left on the picture, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Run 3, do you have any reason to think the wind changed?
No, sir.
Okay. Run 3, you start on the left-hand side and you're working your way up, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, on run 3, the dog goes all the way to the corner of the impound lot, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, you did a picture for us of that. I'm showing the top of the same page we were just looking at.
Yes, sir.
This top page shows the scent pool, correct?
Yes, sir, a cadaver scent pool.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the far corner of the impound lot. The burned out car, if this picture continued, would be in this area somewhere. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Off the picture to the left side.
Yes, sir.
And the dog scents on this, he's walking all the way up this line of cars all the way to this corner, right?
He walked up to that corner, yes, sir, on cadaver scent.
Okay. On cadaver scent, I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. Now, we've just established, of course, that you don't believe Mesa County Sheriff's Department's storing bodies in their impound lot, right?
Yes, sir.
So again, it's silly to think that in fact, there's a cadaver in the corner of the impound lot, right?
Yes, sir.
So again, you know that there has to be an explanation for that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in your report, you talk about how you talk to law enforcement and you figure out which way the wind normally blows, and the wind normally blows a different direction. Because right now, the wind's blowing, this picture is at a different angle, but it's blowing right to left or down that direction on this line of cars, right?
Yes, sir.
But you talk to law enforcement, and you get an explanation from them that normally the wind comes from a different direction here, right?
Yes, sir.
And normally the wind would push all the scent into that corner, right?
Yes, sir.
And so necessarily you have an explanation to explain why your dog is hitting in the corner of an impound lot that can't be right. Would you agree?
The dog is indicating the presence of the odor.
That's not what I asked you. What I asked you was, you have an explanation why your dog's hitting on something that can't be right, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Pepsi. We won't go to the Pepsi building, okay? Now, we saw pictures yesterday, him putting up exhibit SSS. We saw pictures yesterday showing this white truck, right?
Yes, sir.
And this white truck is the truck your dog says something unusual is going on, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the white truck, you know, you have a bunch of other vehicles around here, right?
Yes, sir.
And part of what you're doing here, oh, let's be clear. The evidence tape wasn't around that truck when you did it, right?
Correct.
And that was very intentional. You don't want evidence tape around the vehicle law enforcement suspects may be involved in a crime, correct?
Correct.
And that's because, just as we talked about yesterday, handler bias is a real thing, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that bias can be unconscious, right?
Yes, sir.
And unconscious bias means something that you know could affect how you treat or how you handle your dog.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you make a conscious effort not to be exposed to information about the case, thereby alleviating any concerns about unconscious bias in your handling of your animal.
Yes, sir.
So the evidence tape, not there, get rid of unconscious bias. Good thing for the quality of your investigation. Fair enough?
It removes one of the elements, yes, sir.
Okay. In this building, or in your testimony yesterday, we saw a bunch of pictures, but we didn't see the full scope of this room. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to put up Exhibit RR. That's one side of the building, right?
Yes,
Is
sir.
it triple R or
RRR.
triple R?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
It's my best seal impression. Okay, so we put up RRR. That's one wall, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then we go to SSS. Now this is basically doing a panorama. We can see the same yellow fire trucks against that wall in the back corner of SSS, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then if we keep going, we get to triple T. Whoop, that's not triple T. Now in triple T, we can see the evidence tape around the white truck, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay? And then if we go to QQQ, we continue on our panorama around the room, and we get to that other wall, right?
Yes, sir.
Every single vehicle in this building except for the white truck is either law enforcement or wildland fire or somehow related to official business, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So literally, when you go in there without evidence tape to ensure there's no unconscious bias, the only vehicle in the room that it is reasonable to think has anything to do with this case is the white truck. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The idea of eliminating unconscious bias in this particular situation is actually a complete facade, because you're not foolish enough to think that the sheriff's department thinks that some police vehicles used in the murder of Miss Paige Bergfeld, do you?
No, sir. That's why I took additional steps.
And the additional steps, just so we're clear, is to remove evidence tape.
No,
That's it.
sir. The additional steps include how I deployed the dog and allowed the dog to work off-lead, that I was not with the dog as he was performing his search, and he was working independently of my position.
Which kind of gets us to a point. There could not be unconscious bias in your searches because you are such a skilled handler, and the way you conduct your searches eliminates any possibility of unconscious bias. That's what you believe, right?
My behavior is to eliminate as much as I can that possibility of producing unconscious bias.
Sure sounds to me like what you said was, yes, I am such a good handler. The way I do this, there's no possibility of unconscious bias, right?
There's always a possibility.
Okay, but you don't believe that. Not in your circumstance, ma'am, do you?
No, sir. There's always the potential. That's why I take the additional steps that I can to reduce it as much as I can.
Okay. Do you think it is possible you, Sarah Platts, screwed up these tracks due to unconscious bias?
Not that I've been told.
Okay. Let's let's go a little further on that. Do you think that if you screwed up these tracks due to unconscious bias, there's somebody out there to come to you and say, hey, Ms. Platt, you're doing this wrong?
If that information is out there, I would hope that they would inform me of it.
I can't imagine how they would know that. Can you?
Only a further investigation. Documents different.
Okay. Now, on Defendant's Exhibit S, this truck, that's the one where something is unusual about this truck, is what you said your dog says, right?
Yes, sir.
You made it clear. Your dog's not saying he smells Paige Bergfeld's scent on this truck. He's saying there's something unusual about the truck, right?
He was scented on Mrs. Bergerfeld's dress scent pad, and he performed an unusual search behavior when he got to the rear of this particular vehicle.
Okay. That's a good point. Dogs don't talk. Dog didn't actually say anything, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. But you said this truck, your dog is acting unusual here. That means the truck's unusual, right?
There's something unusual with the vehicle, yes, sir.
Okay. The dog saying something's unusual at the back of the truck.
Yes, sir.
Now, if it's true that Julie Jones' dogs are saying there's something unusual about the truck in an entirely different part of the truck, that doesn't surprise you in the slightest, right?
All I can say is where my dog had the behavior.
I understand. You can't say why Julie Jones' dogs do what they do because you're not the handler for those dogs. Right?
Correct.
You're the handler for your dogs. You're the expert on your dogs. Presumably, you would think Julie Jones is the expert on her dogs, right?
Yes, sir.
So you can't say why the dogs of Julie Jones are doing anything, right?
I can't speak for her dogs, that's correct.
Okay. But what you can tell me is if you get a result and Ms. Jones gets a completely different result, you think that's not surprising. True?
All I'm reporting is what the dog did.
That's not what I asked you. Your dogs get a result. Ms. Jones' dogs get a different result. That is not surprising to you.
It's possible.
Okay. And it's possible because there could be handler error, right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Jones could have made a mistake.
Possible.
Okay. You could have made a mistake.
Possible.
You don't believe that, right?
Not that I tried to prevent that from happening.
Uh-huh. And you also don't believe that it happened.
Not that I'm aware of. I tried to prevent it to the additional steps that I took.
Ms. Platts, I'm not trying to trick you. You don't think you made a mistake, right?
I feel that I worked this building to the standard that we normally do for these types of searches.
Okay. Do you think you made a mistake?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So, if somebody made a mistake, you think it would have been Julie Jones?
No, sir.
Because you don't think Julie Jones made a mistake, right?
No, sir, that's not what I said.
Okay, well, if somebody made a mistake, which you said is possible, and you don't believe it was you, then you believe it was Julie Jones.
No, sir.
Okay? If somebody made a mistake, who made it?
Where the dog indicated is just where the dog indicated. It doesn't mean it was right or wrong. That's just where the dog indicated, and that's just what I wrote. I didn't indicate one way or the other.
Okay, but what we're talking about is if somebody made a mistake in the handling of the dog. You're of the belief you didn't make mistakes. You're of the belief Ms. Jones didn't make mistakes, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Is that different than you don't believe she made mistakes?
Each person deploys their dog in their own manner. For the way I deployed my dog, that's all I can speak on.
No, you can talk about your belief.
Yes, sir.
And is your belief that Ms. Jones made a mistake?
I don't know. I wasn't there when she ran her dog. I didn't see what she did.
Okay. You believe it is more likely, if you and Ms. Jones are getting different results, that that is a function of some sort of randomness of sense. Is that right?
Possible, yes.
Okay. So when your dogs do it, the scent happens to be at the back of the truck. Not surprising. When Ms. Jones does it, the scent happens to be at a different place on the truck.
All I reported on that run was that there was a change in the dog's searching behavior, and the location where that behavior occurred at that was not seen with any other vehicles in that building.
Ma'am,
I didn't attribute it to anything.
what your report says. You've testified to that on direct,
Yes,
right?
sir.
You've also testified to it today, right?
Yes, sir.
So you've told us more than once what your report says, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We get it. We know what your report says. You told us. What I'm asking you is, it's not surprising that this scent is moving around the truck. You think that's not surprising?
It's possible for scent to move, yes.
Okay. And let's not forget, it's possible for the scent to move around this truck after it's been sitting in this Pepsi building for some unknown period of days, right?
Yes, sir.
But we know it's scent that has been on this truck since Ms. Bergfeld disappeared, right?
I don't know that. All I described was the change of the dog's behavior.
Uh-huh. Well,
What was causing that
you know
behavior, I
Ms. Bergfeld
didn't.
disappeared
Yes, sir.
in June of
Yes, sir.
June 28th, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, you're doing your search on August 4th,
Yes.
right? Okay. So, what I'm hearing you tell me if I'm wrong, is that you don't know when the scent got put on the truck. It is possible it got put on there August 3rd, right?
It would have, if that was occurred, then it would either have to have been intentionally applied by somebody related with the investigation.
Okay. It's pretty ridiculous to think Ms. Bergfeld is sneaking into the Pepsi building to touch this white truck, right?
Yes, sir.
You don't believe that.
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. What you believe is that on the date Ms. Bergfeld disappeared, she's around this truck. That's what you think.
No, sir, I didn't say that at all.
Okay? You just think her scent is on this truck for no reason.
I didn't attribute in my report, I didn't indicate that it was a positive or negative indication for Ms. Bergfeld's scent. The only thing I indicated was that there was a specific change in the dog's behavior that occurred relative to this particular vehicle and no other.
I think this is the third or fourth time you told us what your report said, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you want to tell us again what your report says?
Would you like me to?
Not really,
Okay.
but do you feel the need to?
Only if you ask me the same question again.
Well, the question I'm asking you isn't what your report says, man. The question I'm asking you is, when did Ms. Bergfeld's scent get on that truck?
I don't, that's unknown.
All right, let's move forward. Tracks 5 and 6. Tracks 5 and 6 happen out at, I'm putting up triple P as in Paul, and so our record's clear. The page I'm looking at is documented as 1459 at the bottom of the page. Nope, 1460 at the bottom of the page. Okay. These pictures relate to where you conduct the scent tracks around Bob Scott RV, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, these scent tracks that you're doing in this area, tracks 5 and 6, are scent tracks you're doing for the scent of Ms. Bergfeld, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what your dogs do here is they go wandering all over the neighborhood, right?
I wouldn't characterize it as wandering, but yes, sir.
Okay. The starting points you're determining here are not based upon any information you have, because you have maintained willful ignorance about the facts of this case to ensure there's not handler bias and unconscious cueing, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the fact that you're starting here is solely because law enforcement says, Ms. Platts, we want you to look for Ms. Bergfeld's scent in this area, right?
Yes, sir.
You, because you can see, recognize the fact that you're right in front of Bob Scott RV, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're well aware of the fact that that is a building.
Yes, sir.
You are well aware of the fact that that is the building closest to where the police say, please search here, right?
There are adjacent buildings. There's one across the street, but yes, sir.
Well, the question I asked you was, that's the closest building to what they want you to search, right?
They took us to an area. Yes, sir.
Okay. And that building is the closest building to the area.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, your dogs do not wander. They engage in a track twice in this area, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the tracks they engage in, you GPS the track that they do. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, you have provided us with a map of those tracks, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I am putting up the top picture that is on the page that is numbered 1466. Continuing permission to approach the exhibit. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, this yellow line is the track your dog runs, right?
Yes, sir.
And yesterday you testified about where the dog went, and he went by some other buildings, and he went down the road. But this is actually a picture of what the dog does, right?
Yes, sir. I'm wearing the GPS.
Pardon me?
I'm wearing the GPS. The GPS is on me.
Okay.
So we're together.
So this is where you go, but your dog's not that far away from you.
That's correct.
Right? All right. So it's fair to say this is a GPS track showing where your dog went, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now your dog and you start in that intersection. You just told us that, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the dog goes all the way over here, and it goes up here, and, oh wait, I'm so confused. He goes that way, and then he goes that way, and then he goes around these circles, and he goes way down there, and eventually he heads back that direction, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He goes about 3/4 of a mile, and it's your testimony, he is scenting Paige Bergfeld's scent, right?
Yes, sir.
For 3/4 of a mile in these loops and all this area, that's Paige Bergfeld's scent there, right?
Yes, sir.
And ultimately, what you said was, you stopped him because he couldn't find an exit trail, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to be perfectly clear. Her scent's everywhere here, but the reason you stopped this is you can't find a scent track out of this area, right?
Yes, sir. We reached our starting point again, and he self-halted.
Okay. Now, so we're clear, that dog is scenting a track that whole time, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if your dog is accurately reporting what your track shows, your dog is saying the scent of Miss Bergfeld goes for 3/4 of a mile with a whole bunch of little loops and backtracks and up north and down south and out east, and it winds up at the same place, right?
Yes, sir. The perimeter of the scent pool is those locations, yes.
Okay. No exit trail means Ms. Bergfeld doesn't leave that area, right?
It means I don't have an exit trail for her, yes, correct.
Now, you realize it's pretty silly to think that Ms. Bergfeld's still there when you're in that area when you do your track, right?
I don't know where she's at this point, sir.
Okay, but you do know some things, Ms. Platts. You know, her remains are found in Wells Gulch, 6 miles away from Bridgeport Road, or the water down Bridgeport Road, right?
Years later, yes, sir, I learned that.
Okay. You make the distinction, her body's found years later. Does that mean you think realistically Ms. Bergfeld's hiding in this area when you do your search in August?
I don't know what I have. I just reported what the dog did.
That's not what I asked you. Do you think Ms. Bergfeld's hiding in this area when you're doing your search in August?
At that point, I don't know.
I know you don't know. I'm asking what you think.
I was taken to a location, and they wanted to see if her scent was there.
I am asking what you think. Do you think she's hiding there in August when you do this track?
I don't know what I had at that point. I was simply deploying the dog on her scent to see what the dog indicated.
Okay, so you're a tabula rasa, no thought whatsoever, right?
I don't know what the dog's going to do until I actually deploy the dog. I can't assume beforehand the dog's going to do anything.
Well, you certainly are comfortable redirecting the dog when you're in the impound lot, but here, you're just following the dog and accepting whatever the dog scent says is absolute truth. You don't know if Ms. Bergfeld's in this area in August. It's a possibility.
It could be, yes.
Okay. Now, track 6, going to the bottom of that same page we just looked at. Again, we're tracking Ms. Bergfeld's scent here, right?
Yes, sir.
And on this one, you don't start in that intersection. You start on the other side of down Bob Scott, but still in the Bob Scott area, at a dumpster, right?
Yes, sir.
So before you started a little bit to the left and south of your starting point here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So starting at the dumpster, your dog goes all the way up to Walker SMS, right?
Yes, sir.
Walks all around Walker SMS.
Yes, sir.
Walks all the way down to G Road, right?
Yes, sir.
Walks all the way back up, cruises out east a ways, and you stop him there, right?
Yes, sir.
This area shows the scent pool of Ms. Bergfeld, right?
For that dog, yes, sir.
1.5 miles, right?
The entire perimeter, yes, sir.
Okay. So the bottom line is, when we say that Ms. Bergfeld's scent was found at Bob Scott RV, that's absolutely misleading. Would you agree?
Her scent is in that location. I don't consider that to be misleading. Her scent is there.
Her scent is in an area 1.5 miles total track, right?
Perimeter-wise, yes, sir.
I mean, if you scented your dog in this room and you found a scent and the person was 1.5 miles away, would you think it's fair to say the person's scent means that they were in the courtroom?
No, sir, it's the problem is the working styles between the two different dogs are slightly different.
All right. In any case, so this shows us what you say Ms. Bergfeld's scent is, right?
Yes, sir.
Where it can be found.
Where it could be found, yes, sir. It's the
Okay.
perimeter limit of that.
And you mark on this the burned out car, right?
Yes, sir.
Specifically, just so we're absolutely clear, you're saying your dog on run 6, which is before later runs, you do the runs in the order you number them, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you do later runs after your dog's cruising around the burnt out car. Are we on the same page?
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, if Julie Jones' dog can't scent Ms. Bergfeld around Bob Scott RV, that's not surprising to you. This is the same thing we went through before. One dog, different result, other dog, right?
Yes, sir.
That's not surprising.
Difference of dogs, difference of training methods.
Okay. And that doesn't mean that you think Ms. Jones is wrong, but you don't think you're wrong, right?
I'm just reporting what the dog did. That's what the dog did.
And you're not wrong in saying what the dog did. We know that because you don't believe that. Somebody would have told you, this is ridiculous that the dog has gone 1.5 miles, right?
That's the GPS track, yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see. Run 8, which is tracking Mr. Jones' scent at Walker SMS, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we are moving to the next page in the document. So, our page number 1460, I'm making everybody seasick, sorry. Okay, run 8, page 4667, I think. $14.67. Run 8 is our top GPS track, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This track is significant because it shows the scent of Mr. Jones at Walker SMS, right?
Yes, sir.
And it shows his scent trail going to Bob Scott RV, correct?
The dog went that direction, yes, sir.
Okay? And you have said this is the track you believe is validated.
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Oh,
It was the
I get
previous track.
confused.
It was the previous track where K-9 Jack went from the front of Bob Scott's RV to the burnt-out
Oh,
car.
I'm sorry. Let's talk about that one real quick, and then we'll come back to Run 8. So, the fact of that track is significant to you because you believe it's validated. And let's make sure we're all on the same page. This is the track where you start on Mr. Jones' scent at Bob Scott RV, right?
No, sir, I started on Miss Bergfield's scent at Bob Scott's RV. Those two runs that you illustrate was using Mrs. Bergfield's scent.
The one you think is validated is the one where you go to the burnt-out car from Bob Scott RV, right?
Yes, sir, on Miss Bergfield's scent.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was saying Mr. Jones. I confused myself. The reason, though, it's validated is because, and you've testified about this before, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the reason you think that one is validated is because the dog goes to where the car was, right?
Yes, sir.
And you had no idea the car was there.
Correct.
Okay. And we know you didn't know the car was there because you maintain willful ignorance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, Judge, may I have permission to publish Exhibit 905, previously entered into evidence?
Any objection, Mr. Wade?
If it's been entered, no.
905 has been admitted, it's fine, thank you.
You could not possibly have ever seen this particular picture, right?
That's correct, sir.
And you couldn't have possibly seen it because you go out of your way not to know anything about this case, right?
Correct.
And even when you're back home in Virginia Beach and VK9 is looking for things you can do to go out and assist law enforcement, you don't go onto websites and look up cases that are in the national media, right?
Correct.
You would never have done a web search and found an article about a missing lady who is law enforcement can't find and they suspect a murder and there's a person of interest they've identified. You would never look at any of that stuff because though you want law enforcement to get your help, you've got to maintain ignorance. So you just don't look at the media at all related to cases that at some point you're going to be asked to help on, right?
I normally don't make a practice of searching out detailed information, that's correct.
Okay. Somebody is out trying to find out information because somebody is faxing Sergeant Smith at the Mace County Sheriff's Department, right?
Yes, sir.
So you have people like Margie Spencer going through the media, finding stuff out, soliciting business, and you, meanwhile, stay completely willfully ignorant, right?
No, I didn't know about it until I was contacted, I believe, by Ms. Jones to let me know that this was going down. There was a possibility of a case in Colorado.
And you are the person who is in charge of BK9, right?
At that time, it was being run by Ms. Spencer.
Okay? So you, because you're the expert in your dogs, have no need to find out the parameters of what's been done in the case to make a decision whether or not your dogs are even able to help, right?
That would have been left to Ms. Spencer.
Okay. The fact of the matter is, to believe that you know nothing about articles in the Daily Sentinel, you know nothing about national media reports, you know nothing about 9 News in Denver or anything media related in this case, to accept that fact, we just have to take your word for it, right?
Any information I had would have been general information. It would not have been detailed specific to this case, as far as specifically to where this picture depicts. It would have been,
Question I asked you
general.
was, we just got to take your word for that. Okay. Okay. Track 8. We start by... Now, you can't possibly know the car fire or the car site is there because you have gone out of your way to not know anything about this case, right?
No, sir, this is the next day. At this point, I believe I was aware that the vehicle had been found there
Okay.
after I'd gone there with the dog.
So they're giving you information as you're doing these tracks? They've
After
given
the
you
fact.
information before you've done the tracks because you did a briefing, but they're also giving you additional information after you conduct that track, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. And you know distinctly when you got that information because you know it is not possible you were subjected to unconscious handler bias because that doesn't happen with Sarah Platts, right?
No, sir, it didn't happen because I didn't know there was a vehicle where the vehicle had been at.
And it's absolutely a fact. You could not have known that because of the fact that unconscious handler bias doesn't happen with you.
Unconscious handler bias can occur, but I take steps to limit it. In this case, it was by information prior to actually working the dog.
I'm going to move or run 8. Start by the car fire, wind up at Bob Scott RV, actually wind up down the road, but nonetheless, the dog goes to Bob Scott RV at some point, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is a pretty direct line compared to what the dog does for Ms. Bergfeld, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's pretty slick. It goes from point A to point B. It wanders, but I mean, pretty much straight line, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is the place you've done 2 other searches, right?
Yes, sir.
This is the place that the dog was wandering all the way down here, not wandering, tracking, right? He's tracking all the way up north, he's tracking all the way over here, tracking down there. But this time, he does a straight line, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, at this point, are you still maintaining the fact that you have no idea Bob Scott RV is related to this case?
No, sir. At that point, I was aware that Mr. Jones worked there.
Well, how can you know that? Because you maintain willful ignorance, so you don't have unconscious bias.
No, sir. The question came up was because of the dog exiting after he went to the front door and exiting out. And it was learned that Mr. Jones, had been at work that day.
Well, dang, that seems kind of important. You're asking him to find Mr. Jones, and Mr. Jones was at work that day, and you just told us your dog can figure out a whole scent area that covers 1.5 miles to get around it. That's only 0.2 miles. I mean, that's all within the big old area that's searched for Ms. Bergfeld, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, shoot. Sounds to me like the dog could have just smelled Mr. Jones and gone to it. But you're going to tell me that's not what happened, right?
Well, he got there where Mr. Jones was.
But it's your testimony. He's following a track there.
He's following odor, sir.
So just the general odor 2 miles away, or a track showing where Mr. Jones walked?
He's following the scent trail to get to where Mr. Jones is at.
Let's be clear. Is it your testimony that what your dog is doing is following a scent trail where Mr. Jones walked?
Is that the dog is following, or is able to follow the odor trail that led to Bob Scott's RV, where Mr. Jones was working that day.
Persuasive evidence, in your opinion, right?
No, sir, because he was at work that day. If it had been different if he hadn't been there.
Okay. Going to run 9, bottom of this same page. This is the scent trail off of the driver's seat, right?
Yes, sir.
And this one, again, same deal. We're heading from the burnt-out car site, wind up at Bob Scott RV, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you put in your report, based upon the behavior of the dog, you think the dog is trailing the scent trail of Paige Bergfeld, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the behavior of the dog tells you what he's scenting. Couldn't have been that he was scenting a hypothetical Bernice Stogsdill. You don't have any idea who that is, I get it. But he couldn't have been scenting anybody else, because your dog's behavior is the behavior he exhibits when he's tracking people.
For this point, I had the terminus trail. In other words, the dog trailed to this point, but I didn't have the exit trail that I had, with the same behavior that I had gotten on the run just prior to this one.
So does your dog have a particular behavior just for Miss Bergfeld? Have a behavior for every individual?
For the behaviors that you see is whether the trail continues or not, whether the trail stops and halts, or the path that the dog takes to get there.
Okay. You don't find run 10, you don't find cadaver at Walker SMS around the burnt-out car, right?
I had no indications from Ben on that. That's correct.
Now, if somebody else, like Ms. Jones, does, that doesn't surprise you, because sometimes cadaver scent is found and sometimes it isn't, right?
The dog didn't indicate, my dog didn't indicate
Right.
anything.
That's not what we already established that. What I asked you was, it doesn't surprise you if Ms. Jones' dog says there is and your dog says there isn't in the exact same place, right?
It's a difference of dogs, yes, sir.
Okay. So whatever results the dog finds, that's okay. Inconsistencies in no way indicate inaccuracy to you.
All I can do is indicate what my dog did.
Inconsistencies in no way indicate inaccuracy to you.
It's just a difference.
Inconsistencies in no way indicate inaccuracy to you.
I can't say it's either accurate or inaccurate. All I did is report what the dog did.
You'd agree with me, it's pretty deal if it's inaccurate, right?
It's just a difference of the behaviors between the two dogs.
Ms. Platts, please give me this.
Sure.
On a murder trial
Yes, sir.
with a man facing murder charges, please, you think it's a big deal if your dogs are inaccurate, don't you?
For my dogs, yes, sir. I wouldn't want them to be inaccurate.
But inconsistencies don't mean inaccuracy to you, right?
Judge asked and answered.
No,
several times.
it has not been answered.
The objection's overruled.
Inconsistencies is always a question.
Let's look at run 11. I am now moving to page what? 1468 of our document. And continue with submission.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is a big map. Grand Junction's off the map up to the north, right?
Yes, sir.
And then off the map to the south, down here somewhere is Delta, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is Highway 50. This is where you're doing that jump tracking where you're putting the dog in the car and then you're driving down the road and you let the dog out and you do that all the way down, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somewhere along here, you and your dog take a trip out to the, let's call it southwest, off of Highway 50. You recall that?
Yes, sir.
Now, that trip to the southwest is because your dog is running down the road and it starts scenting on a cattle guard, or a...
Tried to cross over cattle guard, yes, sir.
Okay. So the dog doesn't want to go down Highway 50. The dog wants to go southwest, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is not okay, and you stop him because you don't know if he has permission to go there, right?
No, sir. When I stopped him, I recast it to see if the product was due to what I call blow-by scent, which is
What?
caused by cars dragging the odor off of the main track of path of travel.
You wrote in your report, canine turned to cross over guard, that's the cattle guard.
Yes, sir.
Intent on going down dirt road, I assume
Yes, sir.
that's the dog, not you,
Yes, sir.
okay? And then you say, canine halted by handler.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you stop the dog from going where it wants to go,
Yes, sir.
okay? And let's bear in mind here, you're just following the scent. The dog decides where the scent is. You're not making decisions about where the scent is, right?
Yes, sir.
So you stop the dog, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the dog tries to go back down that dirt road again,
Yes, sir.
and you stop him again.
Yes, sir.
Because you, the handler, don't know if the dog has permission to go over there, right?
Yes, sir. It's private property.
So eventually you get permission to do it, and then you and the dog head out southwest, right?
Yes, sir.
And you go for a while, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, you drew us a guesstimation of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Whoops. And your guesstimation is, gotta find it. So we are on page 1464 of our document, top picture. Let's zoom in a little bit on that. That, you think, is, as best you can tell, where your dog tracked when he cruises off of Highway 50, right?
No, sir. That's the road. That's Bridgeport Road. That's the
Oh,
wrong
looking at the
picture.
wrong picture. I'm sorry. So many pictures. Okay, that's the Bridgeport one. That's our guesstimation, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now this is, what, 2-3 miles north of Bridgeport Road?
Approximately, I would guess this.
And your dog goes how far this way, would you guess?
We went in quite a distance.
2-3 miles?
Possible. The GPS was not functioning at this point.
Okay. So, and just so we're clear, this is during the track where you're saying your dog tracks Ms. Bergfeld from Grand Junction to Bridgeport, right?
Yes, sir.
And so the dog in the middle of this shoots out to the southwest, however many miles, and when you get to a point where the police officer's car won't drive anymore, you stop the dog, right?
Yes, sir.
The reality is, if you believe your dog is just following the scent and you're just reporting what the dog says, what your report should say is, we gave up following scent out here because we couldn't drive any farther, right?
I indicated that we stopped because the police car was unable to proceed. Yes, sir.
Okay. You don't find an exit trail out of here, do you?
No, sir, the dog is still in scent and working.
Okay. And so, bottom line is, you have no idea why Ms. Paige Bergfeld's scent would be out here in the boondocks, right?
This particular dog is a very air-scenting dog. He works off the wind currents more so than any of the other dogs that I've had. And so he'll actually air scent his way in because it's an easier skill.
So in fact, you have an explanation for why your dog is out in the boondocks, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your explanation is absolutely consistent with your theory, which is Ms. Paige Bergfeld's taken down to Bridgeport, right?
I don't know that she was taken to Bridgeport at that point.
Well, the fact of the matter is, you say the dog follows the track all the way down to Bridgeport. We'll talk more about other things you say, but you do in fact say your dog scents Ms. Paige Bergfeld down the Bridgeport Road, don't you?
Down Bridgeport Road, yes, sir.
All right. Bottom line is, this, even though you take police officers for a mile out into a field or whatever, however many miles out into a field, this stuff you have an explanation for because that's ridiculous and that Ms. Bergfeld can't be hanging out there at this point, right?
I don't know that. I don't know where she's hanging out at.
All right. Now let's go to the Bridgeport map. The one I started with. Now this is the one where your dog jump tracks down Bridgeport Road. You have to swap the dogs out as you're running down there, right?
Yes, sir, we've moved to this location.
All right. Now I want to be real clear with you. You're trailing from Highway 50 down to the river on Ms. Bergfeld's scent, right?
Yes, sir.
And your dog scent oldest scent to newest scent, right?
Yes, sir.
So if the scent is older at Highway 50 and the scent is newer at the river, the dog's going to go Highway 50 to river, right?
Yes, sir.
It's not going to go the other way. They only scent old to new. Right?
He's following, for that point, he's taking the best scent he can, yes, sir.
Dog goes old scent to new scent.
Yes, sir.
All right. Only. Doesn't do anything else.
He won't backtrack unless I ask him to.
Okay. So you control whether or not the dog goes new scent to old. If you don't ask the dog to, he never goes new to old, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we know, because you've testified previously, that your dogs are so good that if you have scent going in on Bridgeport Road and scent going out on Bridgeport Road, same person's scent,
Yes, sir.
your dog could follow the scent trail in on Bridgeport Road and out. In other words, it could smell so well, it could tell which way it was supposed to be going, right?
Yes, sir.
You recognize that as a phenomenal statement.
But now, I don't understand the question.
That is a picture of the road down to Bridgeport once you get past the Highway 50 area.
Yes, sir.
That is a narrow track, and it's in a really windy, flat place up high, and then it goes down into this canyon area, right?
Yes, sir.
Your dog can tell the difference between which way the car is going on a road like that 30 days later, more than 30 days after the trails are laid down, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The fact is your dog's scent tracks tell you that Ms. Bergfeld's scent ends in a terminal track at the river.
The live scent track, yes, ends.
But you call it a terminal track, right?
Terminal track, we're on live scent at this point.
Terminal track means it ends, right?
The dogs go in, they can't get out, that's correct.
Okay. When you're scenting over by Bob Scott RV, you're saying that there's no exit trail.
Yes, sir.
Here, down at the river, it is a terminal track, right?
Yes, sir.
Is there a difference between terminal track and no exit track?
Yes, sir. When I say there's no exit trail, the dog has odors like a scent pool in one location. And the dog works a perimeter circle around fringe scents of the entire scent, looking for to see an exit track of that person leaving that scent pool area. So if I don't have that, then there's no exit track for the dog to follow. In this case, the dog actually was on trail, got to a location, but couldn't leave that location.
So what you're telling us is you can tell, based upon your experience, whether or not the dog just found the end of the trail or whether or not the dog can't figure out a way out, right?
That's correct.
Okay. You know cadaver scent found there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's a big deal, right?
Yes, sir.
End of the live scent trail, find cadaver scent. Seems like there's a pretty obvious conclusion, right?
Yes, sir.
You've drawn that conclusion.
I have a terminus track and a possible cadaver scent. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's just get it out there, Ms. Platt. Do you believe Ms. Bergfeld was killed at the river based upon your dog's sense tracks?
I don't believe she left that location alive. That's correct.
Well, the question was, do you think she was murdered down by the river? You don't think she left alive, you think she got there alive, right?
Yes, sir.
What are you saying?
The only thing I think is that she didn't leave there alive.
Okay. So you don't want to rule out the possibility of what? Natural causes?
I don't know. It's possible.
Okay. Cadaver scent immediately following her death, right?
The timeline of when this, what they call the scent of death begins, is fairly quickly. They don't have, we don't know an actual timeline of it yet.
Okay. So we don't know how quickly cadaver scent starts after time of death,
Yes, sir.
but you think it's fast,
Yes, sir.
and you think that it is so pronounced that if she was killed at the river, her cadaver scent could be found miles downstream, right?
If there was blood loss, yes, sir.
Okay. There's no evidence whatsoever of blood loss, right?
Not that I'm aware of, but I don't know that information.
Okay. And I don't think you've ever told me that the explanation for cadaver scent miles down is blood loss. That's kind of new today, isn't it?
It's something to be, it's a factor that has to be considered because the dogs will indicate on both decaying human decomp and also, my dogs are also trained to indicate on blood.
But we've talked a bunch. We've talked like 3 different times in court and once by phone, right?
Yes, sir.
And repeatedly, I have questioned this cadaver scent thing miles downriver, right?
Yes, sir.
And today's the first time ever you've come up with the blood loss thing as an explanation for that, right?
No, sir, it's another thing. Either the person, if the person was there and then left, and they bled out there, then I would still have cadaver odor. If the person was there...
Whoa, time out. Now they bled out?
No, sir, I'm just saying that if they had an explanation of why there could be additional odors there.
Okay. Again, apparently weird results of your dog, but you can find an explanation to explain it, right?
No, sir, what I've got is, I've got the odor of human decomp in an area where there probably should not be occurring there.
Okay. We talked about validation. You want validation for your dogs, right?
Yes, sir.
If this jury convicts that man of murder, that is validation for you.
No, sir.
Well, you've previously testified in this matter, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you have said convictions would be validation of your dog's work.
No, sir. What I said is that usually there is, the individual either gives a confession, or the subject who is lost and missing confirms the dog's track, or if we have other evidence such as videos or pictures or hard copy information.
So, you are telling me, and I want to make sure we're real clear here. You're telling me on your website, where you put up stuff about how wonderful V-Canine is and how much law enforcement appreciates you guys, on your website where you have a whole page dedicated to lauding the work of V-Canine, you're not going to put up anything if there's a conviction in this case after all the testifying you've done. Is that your testimony?
No, sir. We've gotten awards for our work, so I have that information on the site.
Okay. That's not what I asked you. It's a fact. You are going to advertise a conviction in this case because that supports your work now.
No, sir. I'm going to advertise whether the dog's work was accurate or not. If it leads to a conviction, that's great. But what I'm following up on is the actual dog work, whether it was accurate or not.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Waite?
Judge, I'm going to be brief.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Ms. Platt, just to be clear, and there's a couple of things I want to clean up here. To be clear, since Mr. Colvin didn't seem to want to accept your answer about the scent on the white truck in the Pepsi Center,
Yes, sir.
have you given any opinion at any point that Ms. Bergfeld's scent is on that white truck?
No, sir.
Okay. Not here, not in previous testimony, never.
No, sir. I just indicated that there was a change of the search behavior, but I didn't attribute it to any particular thing.
Have you ever said in this case that you need a conviction for validation of your dog's work in this case?
No, sir.
And in fact, it's your opinion that you don't need that?
If I have, the conviction does not support the dog, doesn't prove the dog did anything. It's the other evidence of the dog's work through either camera video, the subject describing that, yes, he went exactly where the dogs indicated he went, or the person, and there's corroborating evidence from other third-party sources that prove the dog's work, what they did.
So if there's other corroborating evidence in the case that would indicate that what your dogs did was consistent with some of that other evidence, that would validate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Real quickly on the FEMA study.
Yes, sir.
You talked yesterday about this FEMA study and dual-trained dogs, cadaver dogs versus live-scent dogs. In that FEMA study, was that anything like your situation here?
No, sir.
Why not?
That study, when they're doing disaster work, it's a generic live scent, which means the live scent of any human in that area. As with the cadaver scent, it's in the smell of any cadaver odor in that area. So it's very general human, general cadaver. With demand trailing dogs, it's very scent specific. I sent them to a specific person or a specific odor I want them to locate, not just any human, a particular human.
Okay. So that's what makes this different from that?
Yes,
is
sir.
that that's generalized and this is more specific?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Colvin was showing you a picture of the scent pool indications there in the impound lot.
Yes, sir.
But that was not run 3. He was talking to you as if that was run 3. That was not run 3. Do you recall what run 3
Yes, sir.
was? Run 3 was what was the dog scented to?
The shorts belonging to Mr. Jones.
Okay. And what did the dog give a positive indication on?
The positive indication on car 3, which was Ms. Bergfield's car,
And in particular?
on the passenger and driver's sides of that vehicle.
Okay. Now, just so we're clear, when you go into a run, do you know what the right answer is to get at the end of the run?
No, sir.
And in essence, there's not a right or a wrong answer. It's simply what the dog does. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you sent the dog, for instance, on a person.
Yes, sir.
You ask them to go look for that person.
Yes, sir.
They either find that person or they don't.
Correct.
Okay. If they give a positive indication, you note that.
Yes, sir.
If they don't give a positive indication, you note that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If two different dogs do two different things, I mean, first of all, that assumes that, if we assume that one of them is wrong, that would lead into that series of questions that you got into with Mr. Colvin. You talked about inconsistencies.
Yes, sir.
Can two dogs give an inconsistent result?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there are a number of factors that go into what that inconsistent result may mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your working style might be different, the training of the dogs might be different, the capability of the dogs may be different.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bottom line, either the dog, well, bottom line is, the dog does what the dog does and you interpret what the dog does.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And there's no judgment about right or wrong, it just simply is what it is. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Nothing else, Judge.
Mr. Colvin, recross.
It simply is what it is. So your dogs are good enough to go down Bridgeport Road and come up Bridgeport Road and distinguish between going in and going out on that dirt road, right?
Yes, sir.
That is what it is, right? They can do it.
That's what they did on the 1 cent article up at the parking lot. Yes, sir.
Okay, they can do it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Track 20, you go out to Bridgeport Road by Highway 50, right?
Yes, sir.
Dog sense, right?
Yes, sir.
It is what it is.
Yes,
The
sir.
dog's scenting on Lester Jones. Bridgeport by Highway 50, right?
Yes, sir.
And the dog goes across Highway 50 and starts heading north to Grand Junction, right?
Yes, sir.
And you put in your report that what it is in this case is that Mr. Jones' scent goes north, coming out of Bridgeport, right?
I have Mr. Jones' scent heading north on US 50. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you know for a fact that Ms. Bergfeld's body is found south of Bridgeport Road, right?
I learned that later. Yes, sir.
Okay. And it is what it is. You got him going north, her body's going south. Those facts are indisputable, right? Because it is what it is.
I have Mr. Jones' scent returning on US 50 north. Yes, sir.
And the dog follows the most recent track, right?
Yes, sir.
Never goes new to old, always old to new. You didn't tell your dog to do something different there, did you?
No, sir. We try and keep to the
Okay.
freshest.
So the scent track coming out of Bridgeport Road, we know, goes across and up, right?
No, sir. The dog scented over. This was Jack. He's a very air-scenty dog, and he will air scent over, and that's what he did. He air scented to the freshest track, which was the one on North US 50.
So there's an explanation.
Yes, sir.
That explains why the inescapable facts that we know, body south, your track north, don't make sense. You got an explanation, right?
It's the air scent of the dog, sir. It's that particular dog.
I get it.
Okay.
The question is, you got an explanation.
Yes, sir.
Nothing further.
Mr. Wade, other questions for the
Nothing
witness?
based on
Is she still under subpoena or released?
We'd ask that she be released at this point.
Any objection? All right, thank you. You're released from your subpoena and free to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll go ahead and take a short recess, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember all the instructions for the recesses. We'll just be about 10 minutes, please. Thank you. Please rise for our jury. Our jury has left the courtroom. Anything for the record, Mr. Waite?
No, sir.
No, sir. Mr. Colvin?
No, sir.
Thank you. We'll be back then at 10:45, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.